Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I am your host, CrashLit. If for those of you watching this on YouTube, yes, I am in a different location again. So if you're wondering, yes, I went up to Utah to ski for a few days. But no way was I missing the Monday episode. So here I am. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring my full mic set. So for both video and audio listeners, if the sound quality is not the same, I deeply apologize. That said, that's not going to stop us from getting at everything that happened and everything that's going to happen in USC athletics. So let's dive right in. Let's start with some news out of football. Offensive lineman Emmanuel Pregnon is in the portal after previously announcing he was staying. And this has kind of been an interesting story to follow. He initially accepted an invitation to the East-West Shrine Bowl, which kind of signifies he's going to probably go to the draft. Then he reversed course and played in the Vegas Bowl. And now, and it seems like he's going to be a big part of last year's roster, but now he's in the portal and looking for a new home. I wish him all the best. That said, though, it's definitely a blow, but I'm confident that USC and Zach Henson can put together a new line, especially built around two guys who are going to be staying. So you got Elijah Page, who got considerably better throughout the season, as well as Alani Noah, as the two returning starting offensive linemen. And that leaves three out with Jonah Monheim out of eligibility and onto the NFL. And Mason Murphy also transferring out in addition to Pregnon. However, while that's definitely a blow, some big news with guys incoming to the football team. A big pickup for Lincoln Riley in the running back room with Waymond Jordan, who is a four-star transfer and the best running back out of JUCO. He played at Hutchinson Community College in Hutchinson, Kansas, and has potential to be the RB1 for USC next season, especially and it's a huge pickoff with Quentin Joyner now off to Texas Tech. USC did also get Eli Sanders, who we talked about a few weeks ago from New Mexico, and they also have Brian Jackson and Amarian Peterson returning. So, who the last two had good games who played well in the Vegas Bowl. So running back room really starting to look solid. I'm really confident in this and will be, I think, a big piece to the offense next year, especially if they're utilized well. Because I think if USC has a really balanced attack, the offense, no matter whether it's Jaden Mayava, Hassan Longstreet, or whoever else might be the starting quarterback next year, I think can do a very good job and lead a very balanced and explosive offensive attack. On some quick news from women's volleyball, congrats to both Mia Tuaniga and Allie Batenhorst for being named to the VB magazine as fourth team All-American. So really excited for both of them. And as I've said, I think their date with each other is 4 days away. I think when Tuaniga's Atlanta Vibe and Allie Batenhorst's Omaha Supernovas face each other for both players' Pro Volleyball Federation debuts. So definitely something to tune into if you got the time. As for incoming players, congrats to both Taylor Deckert and Abigail Mullen on getting to take part in the Under Armour Next Volleyball All-America game in Orlando. That was last week. That's some quick news from the women's soccer team. Big congrats to senior midfielder Helena Sampaio for signing a contract with the BK Häcken in Sweden. So wish her all the best, and definitely excited to see her drill more long-distance kicks in the net, something that was pretty much she got really well known for. I mean, like, as I've talked about before, both on this show, and if any of you followed me on my social media, you know that I did a piece on her goal against Indiana, which was a really exciting piece, and it just shows that she's just a great player, and I'm really excited for this opportunity that she's getting. On to the sports that are getting some action and getting ready for their seasons. We got women's tennis. They start their dual play in the Hawaii Invitational in Honolulu. That'll be hosted by the University of Hawaii. Participants will be Hawaii, USC, and Texas A&M, and it'll run from January 8th through the 11th. So next week we will talk about the results from that. As for swim and dive, both the men's and women's teams resume action against UC San Diego on Saturday. Their meet starting at 11 a.m. Both teams are have 2-0 records in the meets in the dual meets they've taken part in, and look to keep their seasons going strong after 2 months off. UC San Diego does look like a decent team. Looks like they've beaten some solid programs. Definitely should be fun meet to go to. I will be there. So really excited to just, get back to some of the other, all these like spring sports, obviously swim being a winter sport, all these sports getting to, start up. So I'm really excited for everything that's to come this spring. As for men's volleyball, as we talked about last week, they were ranked 7th in the preseason AVCA poll, and I'm excited to just see how this team looks, especially a lot of good freshmen, but also some good big returners like Dylan Klein, Austin Stewart, Wesley Smith, and of course others as well, stepping up into big leadership roles. And I'm really excited to see all the potential, see this team really just see all this potential just turn into a lot of wins. And I think this could be a very exciting season. I think the preseason ranking says that. Obviously, they're voted second in the MPSF coaches in the MPSF polls. So I think this team's got a lot of potential. And they also start up this week. First, as we talked about, first game of the season, first match of the season is in the Galen Center Pavilion. It's open to fans that I was able to confirm on this Thursday. It's against Damon. It'll be on the Big Ten Plus, and then the first match in Galen Center will be on January 11th against 19th ranked Princeton, also on the Big Ten Plus. So two big matches, especially the Princeton match, should be a good one. You see those Ivy League schools, even though it's only really Harvard and Princeton, I believe, who have men's teams. I'm excited to see how they look. Usually come out competitive. We saw it last year with Harvard when they came to town to play the Trojans. But some news as for the TV. How to watch games if you can't make it to Galen or if they're on the road. All home games this season, all USC home games will be streamed on the Big Ten Plus. So make sure you get that subscription if you don't have it already. And any MPSF conference games, home or away, regardless of whether it's even the ones that aren't USC and UCLA, all of them are also on the Big Ten Plus, and then the Big Ten Challenge, which will be at Ohio State, which will feature USC, UCLA, Ohio State, and Penn State, are also watchable on the Big Ten Plus. And then I will, of course, obviously report on the TV status of how to watch all the other away games as information becomes available. So let's now move on to women's basketball, who is continuing to stay hot, tacked on 2 more wins, got a 77-57 win against Nebraska on New Year's Day, so kicking off 2025 right. And this is the first episode of the New Year's, so too, yeah. But that's definitely great to see them start 2025 off with a win, and then yesterday beat Rutgers 92-42. So let's get about these games real quick, or let's get into the games, I guess. Juju Watkins led with 26 points. Kiki Iriafen had 14 over the Huskers. It was a big crowd, I thought. A lot of people showed up, really excited. So even with the New Year's hangover, people found their way to Galen, which was really exciting. And Huskers played well in the first half. I got to give them credit for that. Then obviously their best players were Britt Prince, who had 14 points, and Logan Nisley, who had 10. But after a tight first half where Nebraska was threatening with the lead, and I was getting a little worried, USC came out and dominated the second half. So it was really a great second half. And I think you saw they played it was kind of a similar game to how the game against Michigan went. 20-point win, roughly similar scores, and a very competitive half for USC just found their rhythm and just blew them away in the second half. So really great game to be at. And then I was able to catch most of the game against, I got tuned in about halfway through the second quarter after I got into Utah yesterday. I was able to watch the USC Rutgers game, and it was a very different game. USC dominated from start to finish, even with JoJo Lacey having 14 points and Destiny Adams having 10. It was not too competitive a game. And they didn't have their best player. Sure, they have their best player, Kiyomi McMiller, who's averaging 19.9 points per game. But still, it was an absolute walloping, the worst loss in Rutgers history. So that feels pretty good to say out loud right now, especially after I learned it on the broadcast last night. But on to how USC did. Watkins had 23 points. Kennedy Smith stepped up, had 19 points. She's been continued to really impress, and just impressed with how everyone on this team steps up. That goes for both games, and just how the players on the bench are stepping up and taking big roles. And you just saw Avery Howell, Kaylee Heckel, Clarice Akunwafo, Malia Samuels just this week. They're going to be important just with big, tough opponents coming down the pipe, especially this game. And before we get into that, a big congratulations to Rhea Marshall on reaching 1,000 career rebounds. against Rutgers, and it just shows her value and dominance in the paint on both sides of the court. Even if she's not having a big game, you just know like you got to watch out for Rhea. She's going to be there boxing you out, boxing players out, and just getting that rebound. So big credit to her for just doing a great job and just being just a consistent starter year after year, even just through all the changes that have been coming ever since her freshman year. Because she showed up and she got here same. She's a senior like me, and then she got here the same year Gottlieb did, and just year after year, just seeing the team just get better. And a lot of it is a testament to just her getting better and just her ability to just pull down boards, but then also just be a force in the paint. So it's been really exciting to watch Rhea, and I'm really excited to see how she does the remainder of the season. USC now stands at 14-1 on the season, 4-0 in Big Ten, and only UCLA, Maryland, and Ohio State are still undefeated in Big Ten play. USC held steady at number 4 in the AP poll this week. Up next, they will face Maryland, who is undefeated, off to a 4-0 start. And I think that's going to be a great game. USC staying on the East Coast to take on the Terrapins, but it's definitely going to be quite the game, especially with how well the Terps have done. Maryland held steady at 8th in the country. They're 14-0, 4-0, as I mentioned, 4-0 in Big Ten play. So it's definitely so it's going to be big game, especially on the road for the Trojans. And then USC will come home so that game is on Wednesday. And then on Sunday, USC plays Penn State. So first game back at home at Galen. So definitely a big game to be at. And Maryland game's at 6:30 on FS1. As for the Penn State game, that one is at 6 p.m. on Sunday on the Big Ten Network. So 2 big games coming up for the Trojans. I think definitely that Maryland game is going to be huge for them, especially on this long road trip. I saw on the game last night, they're talking about how teams been out there for quite a while, especially just how long that flight is. It's a 6-hour flight all the way across the country. So credit to this USC team for really handling the travel well. And I'm really excited to see them continue to do well with these 2 big games. USC needs all hands on deck to take down the Terrapins and the Nittany Lions, especially with Maryland being undefeated. Finally, we will talk about men's basketball. Before we get to the game against Michigan, congrats to John Rudometkin on being inducted into the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame on December 31st. In addition, I'd also like to congratulate someone I also forgot earlier. I want to circle back. Congratulate Reggie Bush on being inducted into the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame on January 4th. He was the 28th Trojan to accomplish that. And for a bit of recruiting news with the men's basketball team, 4-star recruit Elsie Harrington has flipped from Harvard to USC. That happened on Tuesday. And he previously had a scholarship offer under former head coach Andy Enfield, who is now with SMU. And I think he met with Musselman shortly after Coach Muss arrived at USC, and it recently decided to flip. So I think it's a huge pickup for the Trojans and could be a big going forward, especially as USC starts to get more momentum and just more continuity, especially with Muss here for the foreseeable future. So I think that is a big pickup, especially. And hopefully it's just not, and teams should just be able to gel more since they all are more familiar with each other. But now on to the game against Michigan on Saturday. So I actually went with my mom. She's been wanting to come to a USC game for a while, and no one else in my family was available. So she's like, Crash, will you sit with me? I'm like, absolutely. She's like, I want to sit in the student section. I said, that's fine. So for anyone wondering why I wasn't in the student section, that is why I was in section 105. And it was a big crowd, one of the bigger crowds I've seen. Obviously, there's a lot of Michigan alums in LA. I think it's their 3rd largest base of alumni in the country. So it was definitely gave the Wolverines a lot of fans. Wasn't quite 50-50, but definitely pretty sizable Michigan crowd in addition to the Trojan crowd. And it's just a good game overall. And it was a good crowd because the Wolverine fans got 3 or 4 solid "Let's Go Blue" chants rolling through Galen a few times. On to the game itself, Desmond Claude, Wesley Yates III led with 19 points, and it was a pretty streaky game. Michigan kind of would get ahead by about 10 to 12, and then USC would rally and close the gap, sometimes take the lead. Kept a pattern like this until Claude fouled out with about 3:23 left in the game, and then Michigan got ahead and stayed ahead for good. It's definitely a really good game overall. I don't think the score tells the whole story, but it really shows how much this team can fight, especially without a big man. And Michigan had two of them, especially their 7-0 guy, big man Danny Wolf, who is the big force for the Wolverines on Saturday. And I got told to watch for him by a family friend who is a scout for the Wizards, to Johnny Rogers. He was at the game scouting Wolf, and so he was telling me, like, this is the guy you need to watch out for. And he could do it all. He's shooting threes, rebounding on the inside, getting obviously in the paint, and then he was kind of bodying Josh Cohen around. So definitely, like I said, it's tough when you got a 7-foot guy like that who's just good all around. Like Johnny was telling me, he has NBA potential. So he was a good player, and he had a good game with 21 points. So just tough game for sure. But I think it definitely showed that USC's got a lot of fight, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a long season, especially with how competitive Big Ten is this year. So up next for USC, they now sit at 9-5 on the season, 1-2 in Big Ten play overall. So that puts them tied 10th in the Big Ten standings. They now face Indiana on Wednesday, who is 12-3 and 3-1 on the season, and then 13th ranked Illinois, a game that it looks a lot more competitive. Illinois just destroyed Oregon last week. So I think this is going to be two big games for the Trojans, and they're on the road. So tough place to play, two big basketball schools that are proud of their programs, and I think they're doing both really well. But USC's got to come with their A game and just be ready to play. And I think it definitely, two things that definitely need to happen. And obviously you can't, injuries that have to happen. I'm not trying to, I don't want these guys to rush back, but USC is really missing, I think, Terrence Williams II and Matt Noling. Hopefully they are back quick and they recover quickly from their injuries. That said, I hope, recovery goes well and it's not rushed. You can kind of tell the lack of their presence is felt on the court, especially how aggressive both those guys play, and just especially the style of play of the Big Ten. And Williams knows this better than anyone. He played at Michigan last year, sure. Obviously, it was a different regime when Dusty May was still the coach, but still, he knows Big Ten ball. So it would definitely, I think his experience would definitely have benefited the Trojans had he been available. But definitely looking forward to seeing USC bounce back and try to get a couple upsets and really solidify their standing, especially at the 9-5, and just really try to, move themselves up the Big Ten standings. So finally, to close out, I went 1-1 at games last week. I saw the women's basketball win against Nebraska and the men's loss against Michigan with my mom. And that was actually something really fun, just having her there. It was really cool, as I said. So that puts me at 43-12 on the season, 256-95 all time. As for my records at basketball this season, I'm 8-1 at women's games I've attended and 8-3 at men's games. This week is actually going to be pretty busy for me, especially with spring sports starting to come back and swim and dive coming back from their Christmas break. So plans are men's volleyball versus Damon on Thursday and against Princeton on Saturday, swim and dive against UCSD on Saturday, and then women's basketball against Penn State on Sunday. And then that'll basically bring me right up to the start of school. So that's going to do it for us here at the Behind the Caution Tape this week. Thank you again to everyone who's been tuning in. It means the world to me. Subscribe, please, if you're enjoying this. Definitely check out my social media. You can follow me at CrashLit everywhere. Check out my website, crashlit.com, to see everything that I'm up to and what all my past work. And definitely make sure to make it out to a few games if you can. Happy New Year's, everybody. I know I didn't say at the top of the piece, but this is the first episode of 2025. So really excited to, embarking in this new year with this podcast. It's been a lot of fun, as I said, and I'm really excited for what the future holds. Thank you again for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing y'all next week. See y'all back in LA when it starts. And then we'll be back in time for, obviously, the first day of school. Have a great week, everybody, and fight on.